Hey, Becca, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. So tell me a little bit about you. Obviously, a massage practitioner. Can you share with us a little bit of why did you get into this industry?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. And I remember having some friends and kind of being in that environment for a while. And I was encouraged to step into a space where I could get a lot of massages. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And it felt really nice. And so when I went to school, I was a single mom and thought this was going to be the perfect thing. And I had no idea that 20 years later, I'd still be doing it and working it. And it's great.
So what is it that you love about the industry? Why are you still here? Why do you love doing what you're doing?
Oh, it's an amazing career because it's being of service. It's helping people feel better about themselves, about their bodies. It's putting them in better space. And it also makes me feel amazing when I can be of service. And I see they come out and I see their face and they are kind of transformed into like just bliss. And I'm like, I love that face. That is what I live for. And but really it's about connecting with people and trying to it's my little way of making the world a better place.
In the most beautiful way possible.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yes. I call it squishy towel face. When someone, I mean, obviously if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see me squishing my face into like it would be a head hole. And they've got that kind of indentation of the towels and they're like, oh, that's so amazing. There's something really profound and beautiful about creating that space with another human in the most gorgeous way.
Yeah. Yeah. And to also know that they trust you. They trust you with their stories. They trust you with their body and their muscles. And I've never taken that lightly. I've always been in a deep space of gratitude to have people trust me in that capacity. So it's and plus the big perk is it's good for my ego because they tell me how wonderful I am. I'm like, oh,
thank you. It's so true. I love that.
It's fun. Yeah.
Love that. So
it's a win-win.
Totally
Win-win
situation. Okay, so then tell us a bit about, has it always been this easy for you throughout your entire massage career? Has everything just kind of flowed and been wonderful and amazing? I'm assuming you wouldn't be on this podcast if the answer was yes. So
every day, floating amazing every day. No, lots of ups and downs. And a lot of learning. So there's the part of learning the massage techniques and what you can do to like work the muscles. But then every day every massage brings a different challenge. Somebody could come in one week with this issue and then the very next week come in with something completely different. And I think that's what's kept me in the business as well so long, because it's always like a little bit of problem solving. And the techniques that I do, which is a lot of pain relief and getting people out of tension and pain, not just relaxation stuff, but a lot of medical massage too.
You're right. Like when we are able to give in such a beautiful way, it does make a huge difference. And to be able to kind of grab from lots of different, modalities or experiences to be able to help people out of pain, it's amazing. Can you share with us some of your more challenging days or times or seasons? What are some of those, we talk about ups and downs. What are some of the more challenging spaces that you've found yourself in, either as a practitioner or as a business owner?
Great question. So immediately what pops up in my mind is a few years back when my kids were little, it was really difficult to come here and be centered and focused for my clients. And then have to like watch the clock because it's 3:30. I got to go pick up the kids. I got to take them home. I got to drop, and then I got to be back here by 5:30 to do another appointment. It felt really chaotic, and it really taught me how to kind of, once I come back in and leave my stuff at the door, they say, like leave all that craziness there and just refocus and be right back in with the client. That could be challenging times, especially if you pick up the kid and he's not in the best mood or, there's traffic. So kind of really being able to come back and then, from chaos into like stillness and focusedness again, that's always been a challenge. As a practitioner, finding this space to be with each type of personality that comes in, that's been a challenge. Because some people you love, some people you really have to dig a little bit deeper to like kind of find the compassion for them. That's been an interesting challenge. And of course, over the years, it gets a little bit, it's gotten easier for me. But I remember to begin with, I, really had to like sometimes look deeply to find, like, I'm here to help them. I'm here to help them. And that's my job. As a business owner, for years, I kind of just stumbled along and never really had a focused idea about what I wanted. And then after the pandemic kind of hit, it really helped me refocus to say, yes, I'm ready to really launch a business, make it serious, and start to have goals and actually set goals and plan ahead, which is not something that's been ever easy for me. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. I've really had to look differently at what I do, how I do it, and then what I want to create. So challenges amongst the floaty, all fun days.
It sounds like the life of a practitioner. it's kind of what it's like, right?
But welcome to it.
And that's kind of the purpose to this podcast, is to actually give us permission to talk about this stuff, because I think that this is often missed. And it's easy to go, well, you should either, and I used to think I could either be a great business owner or a great mum. And I remember my first business coach going, well, why can't we have both? Like, why can't you do both really, really well? And to kind of even just call out that what it's like to pick up your kids at 3:30 and that crazy couple of hours of, right, have they had a snack? How much sugar have I fed them lately? Where are they hanging out with that kid? Now, is that kid okay? No, that kid's not so good. That kid's not a great influence on my kid's life. How long have they spent together? Okay, if I'm getting someone else to pick them up, have I been reciprocal in that, or am I just asking other people to do my stuff? Like, that's 2 hours of insanity, plus the physical actually getting in the car, going to get them, dealing with traffic, and then their interesting behavior that comes up as well at the end of school days, to then be able to go, okay, center myself, ready for work. And this is normal. This is 5 days a week for many of us.
Right.
And I don't remember hearing this conversation in the massage therapy qualification ad that I went to study.
They don't tell you the good stuff. No.
Exactly. I heard about helping people out of pain. Yay. I didn't so much hear about what it would be like to have to kind of compartmentalize my life and then, be this really centered, ready to go kind of person for work. And then this kind of almost this crazy psycho person outside of the treatment room, because I was over functioning like a crazy person, to then kind of deal with all of that. I don't miss those days, is what I'm going to say. I guess for you, how do you find creative ways when you're in chaos? How do you find creative ways out of the chaos?
Well, that's definitely a work in progress for me. I find different things and different as I age, and then also as I learn new materials and look at life differently, kind of. But I know back when I had smaller kids and I was doing that craziness, I didn't have a whole lot of grounding. So what I did, I don't know how creative this is, but I would just push through, right? Just get it done. We say here, get her done. That's what we do. You just don't stop to think about it. You don't stop. You just keep going, keep going. I can only imagine how much crazy energy I had back in those days. And actually, I remember one client, I was doing exactly that, dropping the kids off, rushing back in, and I walked in because I was late. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah. She's like, okay, slow down. Like, oh, But now I find I've learned different things. Meditation. I try to meditate every day. We've talked about this before, you and I, the stillness, which is definitely a work in progress for me to create stillness in my life. Yes, I do a lot of forgiveness work as well, for myself, for others. I've had training in how to do that, to recognize that, it's not all about me. And some people, it's not what their actions aren't about me either. So there's a lot of different techniques. I read a lot of inspirational stuff. Brene Brown, Louise Hay, Mike Dooley, Eckhart Tolle. I have a lot of books and a lot of quotes that when I feel like something's coming up for me, I'll try to go to that space and pull that book and read that again to be re-inspired that life is just life. We're just moving through it. And I'm not going to like disintegrate or like Spinal Tap, spontaneously combust, it's going to be okay. And so I just reach for whatever I feel like in the moment. I just try to reach for that little level of inspiration. And then sometimes, again, I just simply push through there, just keep going, because there's got to be an end to it sometimes. So it just depends on where I'm at and what's called for the situation. But learning all the time, learning new stuff.
And I think that's when we have a growth mindset where we look for lots of, not necessarily lots of different things, but looking for, so what else is possible, and what else is possible, and what else is possible, and what else is possible. Having that kind of library of things to go to, I think, is a really resourceful strategy. Certainly one that I resonate with. That yes, right. I love stillness, and yes, I love meditation. Do I do them every day? No. Am I working on that? Yes. Do I know that I feel a million times better when I do it? Yes. Does that mean I do it every day? No. Okay, fine. So what else is there? Like I have a really great friend of mine, and we call that that kind of scatty behavior that she certainly sees in me, because sometimes I'll message her on Instagram and then I message her on Messenger, and she goes, oh, whack-a-mole. And I just think that's the coolest word ever, which is like one of those things at a fair, kind of the little moles come up and you whack them. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, whack-a-mole. And I actually know that's what I call that crazy, frantic energy now. It's like, oh, I'm being, and I'll actually message her and go, whack-a-mole, cue whack-a-mole, like, blah, 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 I did this, I did this, and this, and this. However, sometimes we do have quotes and things that come through either one of our chat messages, whichever platform we're talking on, that is just a reminder of that centered space. It's like, I don't think I'll ever be able to say that that's how I live 24/7. I'd like to, but I don't think I think that's, that's the end of the life. Surely that's what we get to go to next. However, learning how to do that and reach for what we need. Do I need to actually change gears, get down, head down, tail up, put my over-functioning pants on and get shit done? Or do I need to sit in stillness, rest, recuperate, nourish my soul? And how am I going to do that? And I actually think that there are seasons for both. I don't think that it's one or the other. I actually think that when the over-functioning pants are underpinned by all of that beautiful stuff, I actually think there's a lot more resourcefulness that comes from that.
Agreed. And again, like you said, it's always a work in progress, right? Because a lot of times I'll do the same thing. I'll start spinning in my head. I got to do this. I got to da 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 da. And then when I catch myself doing that, or I see the look on somebody else's face, like I'm like, oh, whoa, I probably should slow down a little bit, And then people look at me like, you're a massage therapist. I'm like, yes, I can be quiet for 60 minutes. I can do this. But it's always it's a work in progress all the time. And I always appreciate when somebody introduces me to some new technique. I'm like, ooh, let's try that. And then as my growth continues, I just find that then, yes, I can pull this technique when I'm feeling scattered. I just wait for whatever needs to pop into my head. I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to meditate. Now I need to sit still. Or let me go find that book because I know it had something good. And lately it's been the Brene Brown book about wholehearted living and just staying in vulnerability and recognizing the value in that. It's amazing. And it's always something new. Every time you read even the same thing, you find something new every time. You're like, oh, wait, was that written there before? Yeah. Exactly.
I find for me that when I'm in the over-functioning pants whirlwind, and I get that same because I also have a lot of energy, I don't realize that I'm completely out of whack until I meet someone who's really grounded and their face is like, well, that's a lot. And I'm like, I am a lot and I'm okay with that. But it is sometimes a good contrast learning to go, okay, you need to just slow down a little bit, take some deep breaths. And I know for me that finding things that like shame drives three tapes, silence, secrecy, and judgment. Like shame needs three things, silence, secrecy, and judgment. and it is empathy that is the light, and where the light is, the darkness isn't. That framework for me, after reading Brené Brown for 8 years or something ridiculous, and reading her books, and that is like underpinning everything she says. When I'm, meet someone centered and I'm crazy, it's like, what's actually driving this? Oh, it's probably shame. Okay, great. And if it was shame, what would you do? Like, just to be able to, those frameworks, those key phrases, those books that just anchor us back down to earth, is so important to have, because it's like, that's why we tell great stories, because it's the stories that actually bring us back on track and allow us to go, cool, I can actually shift that behavior and I can come back to center.
Yeah. And I make an agreement with myself. I have for years. I made an agreement with myself. Like, when I need something, I talk to myself like this: when I need something, put it into my head. Otherwise, and put it in when I can actually take action on it, not 11 o'clock at night when I'm tired and I'm done. Right. So I've learned to trust myself that whenever I get into spin or just feeling less than how I want to feel, that I'll just stop and be like, what do I need right now? That's a huge thing for me to even just remember to do that I made that agreement. And so now I find more often and quicker getting out of the spin and getting to that place, like, what do I need? Yeah. And I'm sure maturity has something to do with that. I'm sure I couldn't have done that in my early 20s or even have wanted to, but it's a neat place to sit right now. It's a nice landing kind of soft space. Yeah. It doesn't make it any easier. I can be easier with myself, which is key.
Absolutely, it is. And that then flows out to our clients, because when we're harsh on ourselves, we tend to be harsher on those around us unintentionally. But when we can soften that lens and start to apply self-compassion and be kind to us first. I've got a couple of t-shirts that say be kind, and I wear them on podcasts and I wear them on Zoom calls, because it's a reminder to me to be kind, that when we make mistakes, talk to yourself like you would your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old. Like, you wouldn't berate them for stuff, for making mistakes. Yeah. So why do we do that to ourselves? So I think that's really, it's so powerful, because then when our clients come in, we're obviously, especially, they will come in with judgments that they have about themselves, and they'll share them with us because they're in a vulnerable place and we're taking care of them and holding space. We actually give them the opportunity to be kind to them just through who we're being. And I think that's incredibly powerful.
You're right. And that's actually one of the things that is really important to me. And I think that it helps draw the people in, the clients who are my perfect clients, is that I have that space and I can hold that space to allow that vulnerability in them. And it doesn't make me wobble. I can see them, I can listen to them. And a lot of times I try to just connect with them. If they have this raw thing going on, I'm like, oh, I hear you. And not put any kind of judgmental language around it, but really just letting them talk, and, either sharing a laugh or, inviting if they need to cry or whatever, and I think that's really part of what I give to the world. And then also what I give definitely to my clients is that space to let them be what they need to be in that moment, not when they walk out the door and not when they've walked in the door, but what, like, I can tell when someone's spinning now faster than I am. And I, and we make a joke about it, and then and it's just a really lovely place to be able to hold that. And then I think people know that that's what I give. And so it's a special thing to provide. And then that self-compassion. So then in providing that for others, then I turn it around to myself, like, okay, when and how can I do that for myself? And that's a huge shift in learning creative ways out of chaos. How do I shift what I give to what I can receive for myself? And that's been a huge, and I'm like you though, sometimes I can find that space, sometimes I can't. When I do, I'm like, oh, it feels amazing. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, but what about, so it's always, it's always in and out. And I'm learning to be okay with that. I'm learning to just accept who I am. And that's part of being vulnerable.
Yeah. And it's like, check your pulse. Oh, you're human. Okay, great. That's right. That's
all these years, who knew? I guess I am, huh? The super cape and the armbands, right, and the little tiara, like, makes me feel like I'm Wonder Woman. But in essence, I'm just me.
Yeah.
Welcome to me.
And how beautiful is that? So
Right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I think our ability to, like, something you said in there, all of what you said in there is beautiful. Something that really stood out to me is our ability to sit with our own stuff. You know, I think when we can do that, when we've reached that level of, I don't know what, maturity or self-compassion or whatever, I think what I've noticed is that the people that I've met that have learned to be okay with their own stuff, their own vulnerability, their own wobbly bits, you know, like, they're the people that can then hold the space even greater for those around them. And I think that when we can just do that, we can just kind of sit in it. It's like it again gives others permission to probably go deeper with us, because it's like, well, yeah, you know what? Here's my story. You know, I'm a homeschooled, dyslexic, best-selling author. You're welcome. Like, there's some stuff in that in the past would have been super wobbly. However, moving through it and just owning it, it's like, oh, you can't spell? Yeah, no, me neither. I like to think of it as a 70-30 rule. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes I don't. All of a sudden it's like there's so much, I have to get this right because I'm spelling and I'm going to be, judged on it. And it's like, no, actually, you're not. Like, there's no one, we don't have the spelling police aren't here. There's no gold stickers. There's no red lines. It's just you and sharing your gift with the world. It actually dispels so many myths. And I've had that modeled to me in a really powerful way. And I think then being able to model that for others to grow actually allows them to grow even deeper. And that's what I'm hearing in your story, is that by you stepping into being able to be okay in the chaos and be okay with your own stuff, it actually allows you to hold the space for other people that they can then be okay for their own stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the books that I go back to almost every year, and then I have a little post-it note with all of them, is the book from Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you've heard of that, but the 4 agreements are always do your best, which that's like the number one for me. Be impeccable with your word, which I've always tried to do. But then the second two I really have to work hard at is don't make assumptions and don't take anything personally, right? So for the last few years, I would say few, maybe even like 7 or 8. I can't remember how long ago I read the book the first time, maybe, I don't know, 10 years. But I've really tried to like figure out what that means and how much we do take personally, how much we do make assumptions. And then when we do make assumptions, then it messes everything up because you actually don't know what that other person's thinking. So what I've been able, this kind of brings it around to being a business owner. Now that I have staff members, I see them going through some of the struggles that I went through as a younger therapist. And I can see the part where they, oh gosh, they came out with a face and I don't know what the face meant. And I'm like, the face means nothing. Don't worry about it. If you did your best, that's what's key. If you feel like you did your best. And 9 times out of 10, we'll contact the person like, oh yeah, it was fine. It was lovely. It was great. And so just the assumptions that we make can make life so difficult. And so I really try to honor those 4 agreements with myself and then teach them to whoever else will listen and understand it.
I've not heard that book and it sounds amazing. That'll definitely go on my next book to read and be listening to.
Yes.
So in the book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about seek first to understand and then be understood. And I think what that does is it's a good reminder for me as somebody who's prone to talking a lot and filling space with a lot of my own words. And also to be interesting. To be interested, not interesting. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's a great, it kind of is in the same lens of don't make assumptions, because I think all those things
absolutely
is close down our ability to see, and it closes down possibility, because when we seek first to understand and then be understood, when we look for things and other people that are interesting and you become interested in them, we get curious, and we're not assuming a certain thing, all of a sudden the outcome is not there and anything is possible. And we actually can often see the person as they are, not as they perceive or not as they put themselves out.
Present. Yeah.
And that just goes to a whole new level of authenticity and maturity and so many good.
Right. And it takes you out of your own spinning thinking, and really puts it on you looking at that other person and letting them be who they are. And then find the interesting things about them instead of fully, just talking about yourself all the time, or what you can give to them, listening to what they need. Or, I was thinking in the context of a treatment room, so many times we're like, I do this and this and this and this and this, but is that what they really need? Because maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then you're assuming also at that point, you're assuming that they are going to like what you give, but if you haven't connected with them and really heard what they're looking for, how are you going to know? How are you going to know? Maybe they always come in for deep tissue, but today they're really struggling. Something happened and it put them in a different space, in their body and in their head. And they just need a little bit of like nurturing, and how are you going to know that unless you see them and allow them to show up in the way that they need to, that authenticity. Like, hey, I get it. Today's not a regular day. Come get on the table. I got you. I got your back. It'll be fine. We'll just do whatever shows up. It's
such a beautiful thing. And this is such a strange segue, but it reminds me of my hairdresser. So I've been seeing the same hairdresser. I tend to, we had a really big conversation. Becca has gorgeous curly hair, as do I. And we had a big conversation about curls beforehand. And yeah, if you don't mind, whoop, whoop. And so when I find a good hairdresser, I tend to stick to them like super glue in a slightly awkward way, because it's really hard to get a great haircut because it literally cuts different. So I've been seeing this hairdresser for probably 3 years. And every time I go in, even though for the last probably 3 years, it's been a similar cut, she says, what are we doing today? She never assumes, doesn't mix up the color beforehand. She knows but she also knows that I might walk in one day and go, let's shave it off and go hot pink. Like I might do that, because that's kind of how I roll sometimes. I do crazy things. And I love that even after 3 years of seeing her I would say 6 to 8 weeks. James reckons I go every second week, but he's lying. So, seeing her regularly, she always asks, what are we doing today? And I think that it's a great even reminder for us as practitioners to not just assume, because we've always done that same thing with someone. What are we doing today? What do you need today? Who do you need me to be with you today? How can we nurture your body and your soul today in whatever it is that you're looking for? And it's just, again, that wasn't on the brochure for the massage things. And I kind of love that. This is the beautiful unspokenness of massage, that what transpires in that transformation is what happens when a person is feeling seen, heard, felt, and got. Oh, there's such a beautiful space in that.
Right. And I find for me that's kind of a natural progression of how it goes. And I think I've always, at some level, had a capacity to be that, to hold that space. And it's just grown as I've gone through this time. And being a massage therapist for 20 years, I mean, I can really now I can see kind of what I can sense it, right? What they're coming in with. But that, again, I'm not going to make assumptions. So that's how I start every session, no matter if they come to me every week or if I have never met them the first time. I always step into the room. I'm like, so what's going on? What do you need from me today? And sometimes it throws people off if they haven't heard that before. They're like, yeah, I came in for massage. I'm like, great. So tell me what's going on? And, and then they're like, oh, and then they start talking, right? But sometimes even just being that upfront about, hey, tell me what you got. They're not used to that. And it's nice to give them a glimpse of what's possible when you connect with the right energies.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. So for you, sometimes we talk about business trauma, or heck, it could be trauma in general, it could be clients with trauma. How do you deal with that for yourself?
When I think of the word trauma, I just think any occurrence or situation that kind of just knocks you on your rear end, kind of just on your knees. And that's when you feel your most vulnerable, and sometimes you just feel like you want to crawl in a hole and like never come out again. And I know I've been there a bunch of times. That's when I go back to all the things that we've kind of talked about. I search for the right book. I try to get still and quiet, and I ask, like my intuition, if you will, or my inner being, and I'm like, what do I need? How do I get through this? Sometimes I can even do like, I'm like, okay, I want to reframe the situation. Like, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Because surely this just isn't like circumstantial nonsense. I mean, surely there's a reason for this. And I'm always looking to see what little gems I can pull out. And sometimes that's not in the middle of the trauma, right? Sometimes it's like I get through it and I'm like, oh, I'm still alive. What was that about? And I'll admit, sometimes I get stuck in that pity party. Why me? Why is this happening? Or why would they do that to me? And, I can go there and just have a blast being in that little space. But the older I get, I recognize when I'm in that, and I recognize that that's not doing anybody any good, especially me, and try to see the pattern quicker and pull myself out. But, trauma, it seems like what's happening in my world right now is things are happening that feel traumatic almost every day, not to me or even to me, but then every client, has something heavy going on, and I don't know what that's about, but what I can feel at the end of the day after holding this space for so many different people is certainly drained myself. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I feel like I'm kind of like an ape dragging my arms on my way home. And I just have to remind myself that it's, I go back to my training. It's not necessarily about me. I was able to help. One of the most important things, I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier. One of the most important things that I do on a regular basis is try to have a gratitude list. Try to stay in gratitude no matter what it is. And that's probably the best answer to your question about trauma of any kind. When I feel trauma, or I have felt like I just come out of it, I try to be thankful for anything. Like, thank you for the sheets on my bed that I have to lay on, and I have the covers and it's dark, or thanks that I have a car, or thanks that I have clothes on my back, I just try to pick anything. And then of course I can get to the bigger stuff, like, my hair. But the gratitude list is probably the most important thing to me, and the thing that I go to the most.
Yeah. It is such a decision when we are in or on the other side of trauma to choose and decide, I will focus on gratitude, and I will focus on what I have, not what I don't have. That literally has been shown to rewire our brain to look for what is going right as opposed to looking for what is wrong. And
well, it's so much easier to be like, oh man, this isn't happening, and I don't like that, and you just start to spin down. It really feels like work to spin back up and be like, but you know what? I'm grateful that I have teeth to brush to keep clean. I'm grateful that I have, sometimes I even go out in nature. I'm like, thank you for the blue skies, thank you for this tree, thank you that the grass is growing, or whatever, because I'm just looking for anything to bring me back, because I've just spun so far out. And it really is a choice. Like, I have to, like, okay, I look around, what do I have? And then once you start a little bit, then it's like, oh, you know what? I have a lot. I am, I've got this and I got that, and thanks for my son. Oh yeah, thanks for both of them. And I just start thinking like, oh my gosh, you know what? Life is okay. Life is good. I always end up there. I use my gratitude list until I land in that space of, you know what? Life is good. Right. Okay, I'm back,
And do you ever find yourself, when you're in a good place, just naturally getting super high on all the stuff you're grateful for. Have you ever found yourself, like, I find that like when I've run, sometimes when I've been practicing gratitude, that I'm in that kind of post-endorphin high when I'd like to really just go and just take on the whole world. It's just everything's amazing. And I'll literally run and go, oh my gosh, I love my life. Look at my house. I am so blessed to own a house. I can't believe we actually live here in Ocean Grove. Look at that rock. That rock is amazing and it looks beautiful in the garden. Look what James has grown. He's got all these amazing trees, and normally I just walk past them, walk inside, I'm dead.
Right.
However, just being in that space, and I love that, wow, this is what I used to envisage. This is what I used to look at in my meditation sometimes, was having a home that we owned, and all of a sudden kind of seeing these goals and just this like cascade of gratitude going through, probably with the endorphins as well. But hey, what a great thing to anchor to, running and movement.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you start to like, when you start to feel good, then you start looking for more, like, well, at least I do. I start looking for more stuff. Like, okay, I land, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I had that book. Oh my God, I forgot I had that, and like all of a sudden you're finding things that are right there in front of you. They've been there the entire time. That picture on the wall has been there since you put it up there 10 years ago, but like, oh my God, I forgot about that, and oh, I love that book, or I love that painting, or, I find that really, like, once I get ramped up, of course, because I think we function at a high function anyway. So once I get ramped up on that, then they're like, any little thing, then I just kind of hit giddy. And that's when my family's like, whoo, girl, slow down. Because I'm like, oh my God,
everything.
I love my life.
Have you ever seen that beautiful YouTube video of that gorgeous girl? She's got curly hair and she's standing up on top of her bathroom sink, and she's like, I love my hair, I love my Allisons, I love my life, I love my sister, I love my house, I love my life, everything is good. Yes. I love her. I love the joy that is oozing from her, and it's like she is modeling someone in her home that is doing some really powerful affirmations. And how gorgeous is that? And what a problem, I say in inverted commas, to have, when people are like, you're just too happy, you need to settle down. Like, that's not a problem. You have too much joy. Yeah, no, that's not a problem for me. That's a you problem, not a me problem. Right.
That's exactly right. Why don't you just excuse yourself? Because I'm just going to be here and be happy. Okay. You know what though? Honestly, I'll take that on a lead. Is I've always been told growing up, you're too much energy. You're too much. You're too loud. Because I would get, and then so it was interesting, because then you grow up trying to like suppress that a little bit. And then when you get older, then you're like, what happened to that? Like, where did that go? Like, I need that. And you try to like open the doors back up to like, okay, you know what? It's fine to be too much for people. You can walk away. So it's interesting that, I find myself now trying to reach back to that little girl and being like, don't close down. Don't, keep the vibe, keep the vibes up, and reaching deep to find my inner little girl that was too much back then, and be like, we're here, we're loud, we're proud.
And we're filled with joy and gratitude.
I'm so happy. Yes.
This is fabulous. This is absolutely fabulous. So I guess, well, that sounds like what you would do, or you would tell. What would you tell her if you had to think about that young girl who was being told she was too much for people, which was just their map of the world? What would you go back, if you could go back and talk to her now? What would you say?
Easy. I would say, don't listen to them. Don't listen. Be you. Just be you and be happy, and let them figure it out. Let them do their thing and let them say their stuff, and just go have a good time, and really enjoy life. And because I think when you're told you're too much, the burden's you feel burdening, or burdened or something. And I think that I would just say, have fun, girl. Go,
In the opening scene of While You Were Sleeping, Sandra Bullock says something about that her mum said to her, adulthood is what you do while you're getting over your childhood. And she said something like, I wish I had have known that she was talking about my life at the time. That's it. I mean, the rest of the movie, great. Remember watching the movies, yay, late 90s rom-coms, awesome.
Yeah.
But I sometimes feel like that's kind of indicative of the work, particularly if you're a Brene Brown fan. We're all kind of doing our own work because, hey, she said it was a good idea, and we're having breakdowns to break through, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's kind of what we're doing. It's like what happens to us often when we're growing up is then why we do what we do, why we become who we become, because we want to kind of, we're operating out of that. And then to go back and realize that it's because of that stuff that makes us unique and different. It's not because we've got stuff that makes us unique and different. It's actually what happened to us as a result of being told we were too much or not enough or a burden or whatever it is, that we are the way we are. And then realizing that, and then being able to go back and kind of have those conversations with our past self. I know that that has been enormously profound in my own healing journey. What would you say are some of the, I guess, when did you know that you needed to do some work? At what point in your kind of adult life did you go, right, I think it's time to start looking at, you know, doing some internal work here? Like, what's that kind of, this is when I thought I was okay. This happened and I realized I wasn't okay. Is there a
defining? Yeah, great question. I think I would have to start that by saying that I've always kind of been a searcher. I've always been a seeker of knowledge, seeker of spirituality, seeker of a deeper truth than kind of what my childhood presented. And so I think there's always been a level, even I just remember when I started college, actually kind of my eyes opening, because I was from a small town. And, you know, we kind of had our ways of thinking, and then moving to a bigger city, it was like, what? And it just made me kind of, my mind was like, you know, and how does this work? And like, what does that mean? And I think since then, I just started seeking out, and then seeking spiritual stuff too. And that made me start looking at myself. Now, how deeply I looked at myself probably was like, you know, not, you know, it wasn't very deep to begin with. But I remember reading stuff and thinking, oh, you know, I wonder what that means. And okay, like reflection, self-reflection, being self-compassionate and stuff. And I just remember thinking somewhere probably after my first child was born, so mid to late 20s, I was like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff here going on in me. You know, a lot of this, I finally figured out all the self-talk that we do, that is what's causing a lot of the problems, you know, and I think at that point really started to unwind, because I wanted to be the best person I could be, but I also wanted to be a really good example for my kiddo, you know, and I think I've just been kind of unwinding all of that. I had a really good friend one time use a word that just totally like landed it for me. And she said, she was talking about something else. She was actually talking about her daughter who had gone through a certain type of schooling, but didn't like it. And so she was now homeschooling her, and she was helping her unlearn these kind of negative things that she had learned at the school. And I feel like that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is unlearn it, you know, unlearn some of that stuff. And I've been doing that for a really, really, really long time. It feels like I've been doing it forever. But maybe I have, because it feels like that's kind of the path that I've chosen for this life, is to seek and to be open to new things. And that's why I'm called to stuff like Brene Brown and Eckhart Tolle, and, you know, and even Iyanla Van Sant, and, you know, all these names that just have so much wisdom to them.
Yeah. And what do you think is the greatest impact you have on the world because of your lens that you see through this unlearning and through this growth?
You know, easily I would say what we've kind of already discussed is that ability to hold the space for whatever shows up. You know, I am very confident that no matter what walks through my door, I can find some ounce of compassion for that. Even if there's not understanding, I can let them be and show up the way they need to show up. I might have to be biting my tongue to be like, you know, to not be speaking my truth, but I can definitely hold the space for someone, even family members or friends, and certainly clients and coworkers. You know, I can really just hold the space and let them express what they need to express. And I know that it's almost like a superpower, because people, even when they're not in a great space and they're kind of spewing out stuff that could feel like negativity, if they're just heard, if you just let them talk, then afterwards there's kind of this space that they're like, oh, sometimes, most of the time. But I feel like that's what I can provide. I'm like, okay, okay, and then being authentic, kind of raw and real, and this is how it is, and let's laugh and get through it, or let's cry, or whatever is needed in the moment. I'll be right here with you, and sometimes I'll do it before you do it, or whatever, but holding the space and then being authentic. There's something about that being very validating.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely what I look for in the world and in myself, is some validation. And so I think allowing that helps people to feel validated and like they matter. And that makes me super happy.
Absolutely. I think that our industry needs more of this, which is, again, why this conversation is so important, because I actually think many of us operate like this. But how do you quantify that scientifically? I don't know. That's why we have Brene.
Or teach it.
Teach it. Exactly.
Right.
Unless we actually start to talk about it, because talking about it normalizes it. That some therapists and some practitioners are very scientific, assessment, rock on. And I think that it's important that is not the only way that massage is taught or perceived. I think that there is lens and scope, and that it's important that we talk about this more intuitive style of holding space. What do you need? How can I serve you? Yes, I can help with your shoulder pain and your headaches. Oh, by the way, I do massage, because this stuff, this stuff is actually so profound, important, and it's really important work that's being done, because we are so disconnected in this world at the moment. And this is the most disconnected generation we've ever had. And COVID probably hasn't helped in some ways. Right. That we're actually connecting people. We're connecting people to their bodies. We're connecting people back to their higher purpose. We're connecting people in their stuff. And that is a huge gift that I believe you are bringing to your clients in the world.
Right. Well, that's what wellness is, right? I mean, I've really been, for the last year and a half, really been trying to look at what wellness encompasses. When you say wellness, we don't just mean that you look great in a bikini, or whatever. And then what looks like wellness for you is going to look different for me, and I've really that's really important to me to find out where all of that, like, where is that held in that space. And I think you're exactly right. Being in that space of being able to be authentic and holding them in that space of being authentic, then that's where wellness can start. That's where wellness can start, because they feel heard, they feel validated. I feel like there's connection, and now let's move forward from there. And yeah, by the way, I do massage.
Yeah, that's right. By the way,
I can take care. Right. Yeah. And I can take care of the headache, but that little space of like connecting, because I really think you're right. I think COVID really made a shift for people, and this huge disconnect. And we're all just seeking for some way to reconnect in whatever ways we can. And we're finding ways that aren't working, and I think in my little world, that's what I'm trying to culminate is a space for all who walk through the door, including myself. When I walk through the door, that I can just be in wherever I'm at. Wellness. That's wellness.
Thank you, Becca. It's such a beautiful journey and a beautiful story, and I really appreciate you sharing with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.